All right. I guess with the intro music out, we can get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Hank Schless. The director here at Lookout, and I'm joined today on our Talk Data to Me series by Aaron Cockerill, who's our Chief Strategy Officer here at Lookout. Thanks for joining us, Aaron.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Hank. Happy Halloween.
Yeah. Happy Halloween indeed. Spooky day. It's a nice clear day here in Boston. We had a lot of fog over the weekend. It was very. How is it out there?
It's a bit dark here still. I'm on the West Coast. Just starting.
Got it. Well, hopefully it'll be a good day for all of us. I hope, Aaron, you got your kids who will probably be out trick or treating, and I'm sure it'll be a fun evening. But for today, or for just for now, we're going to focus on some cybersecurity talk here. So, our topic today is trick or treat, avoiding phishing scams. This is obviously something that is increasingly problematic for folks all over, regardless of what industry they're in, what vertical they're in, both on the personal and the work side. I think we all have been getting a lot more of these text messages that seem a little spooky. Put it on theme here today than we used to. So, Aaron, you obviously have an extensive background in cybersecurity. So I would love to start it off by asking you, how you've seen phishing evolve through the course of your career in security and in technology.
Thanks. That's a nice way of saying that I've been in the industry for a long time. So you're old, Aaron. But I think phishing, the term evolved around that the AOL or AOL attack, trying to steal passwords and financial information from AOL users. I think it was originally attributed to Khan Smith. You have to check on that. But what we've noticed is initially most of the phishing attacks were around trying to get you to do something that you wouldn't normally do in email by tricking you into answering a question or providing personal information. Then I would say through the early 2000s and maybe into a little bit longer, there was a shift in focus where a lot of the phishing emails were trying to get you to change your system in some way. In fact, many of them would incorporate malware as attachments, and as bandwidth increased and complexity of the things that you could send in email changed, and accounts supported larger storage and that sort of thing, we saw a lot of payloads being incorporated into email. Filtering those payloads was the response from industry. So the payloads got sort of trickier, where you would even incorporate images and things that would be executed by other applications on your platform that would result in malicious code being executed. But I'd say the most recent trend is that it's moved back away from email more recently. Well, there's no decline, I would say, in general email phishing tactics, but they've expanded into this mobile area. And there's a really good reason for that if you're an attacker, because firstly, we've built great defenses around both corporate and to a large extent personal email to defend against this sort of thing. So there are less controls around things like you mentioned, Hank, SMS. So incorporating malicious links into SMS or into your any of your social media platforms is like the most recent tactic we see. And like I said, it's attackers are using that because it's very effective. And there's a number of reasons why. One is the lack of protections that are built around these platforms. But the second is it's on your phone. So it's actually, you have an inherent level of trust with your phone. You pick it up next to your bedside table and you look at it first thing in the morning. You don't spend a lot of time trying to verify who actually sent these messages. You often can't see it in a reduced interface. So that's where we see the big focus right now, leveraging mobile platforms for social engineering and phishing. It's spooky.
Yeah, no, very, very, very spooky. And you bring up a good point about that sort of inherent trust that we have in the device too, especially when it's a personal device that you're using for work. Maybe if you have a phone that your company gives you, you sort of exercise a little more caution just naturally. But when you're sort of constantly bouncing between the personal and the work use of the device, it gets that line gets even foggier, and it's even more difficult. And You bring up a really good point, which is that uh, you know it's not email anymore, or it's not as much email anymore. It's much more focused on places where social engineering can be a lot more effective. And you just think about the number of applications or the types of applications that have a messaging functionality in them. I mean, even we talk about SMS, we talk about social media. You even think about obviously some third party messaging apps like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, even LinkedIn, even dating apps and gaming apps. I mean, it's crazy how much access someone can have directly to you or your device in order to deliver one of those attacks. And in addition, we're seeing a pretty rapid growth in the malware as a service market, which people are using to basically spend maybe $50 for the pretty simple phishing kits online, maybe a couple hundred for the more advanced ones, but it suddenly gives them a way to deliver a fake Google login page or something like that can target pretty much anybody. And what's also interesting is to look at some of the stats on what we're seeing in terms of what industries are being targeted. So as you can see here, we pulled some of the top industries from our own data set at Lookout. As you can see, insurance, healthcare, hospitals, financial services, manufacturing. I mean, these are the percentage of users within those verticals who have gotten targeted by at least one phishing attack each quarter so far this year. So it's pretty fascinating to see. 1 in 3 people at an insurance company. That's a pretty significant number. Even when you look at something like retail, which was I think about 18, that's almost 1 in 5. I mean, it's hitting everybody. And Aaron, one thing I'll ask you about is, and I think personally maybe it's because of this. So we see a lot of growth in bring your own device, or BYOD. I mentioned before, there's even more trust in the device if it's a personal one, if it's the one that you usually have, to your point, by your bedside table when you wake up in the morning. So can you talk a little bit about that from your perspective?
Yeah, so we saw a dramatic rise in the adoption of BYO devices, over the last couple of years when everyone's been working from home, for obvious reasons. Initially, because companies couldn't get enough laptops for people to work from home and that sort of thing. But also, it's a lot more convenient to walk around your house, and if you've got a tablet in the kitchen, you can respond to whoever's sending you a Slack message or whatever from that device. So we saw a huge rise in BYO. The interesting thing about defending BYO devices from a phishing perspective is, as you mentioned earlier, Hank, they typically have both a personal and a work aspect to them. Or let me be even far clearer. They have applications that actually have often a personal account, say, for example, something like Google or Office 365 or whatever, and then a work account as well. And you'll switch between them, or frequently you'll forget to switch between them, and that sort of issue. And I think what's really interesting about the way that phishing attacks are evolving here is that when we in the security industry think of defending our customers, unfortunately, we frequently think of defending their business-oriented activities, whereas the attackers look at attacking the person. So if I want to get into company XYZ, I frequently leverage the personal aspect of the people that I'm attempting to attack, under the assumption that if I can get into their personal account, an email account, then I can get into hopefully a work account. I can leverage business email compromise by taking over a business email account, for example, which is huge statistics in the amount of, I think there was over $2 billion stolen, or basically the cost of business was over $2 billion according to the FBI in business email compromise. But it's not just business email compromise. Attackers use a personal aspect of individuals to gain access to the companies that they're attempting to attack. And the easiest avenue to achieve that is frequently the BYO devices.
Right. And part of that also is, I think also from a privacy perspective, it can be really tough to sort of play, like almost toe that line, if you will. Like if you're, if I'm the, head of IT or head of security at a pretty sizable company, and my employees or my coworkers use personal devices, I obviously want to be able to secure them on those devices, but I don't want them to feel like their privacy is being invaded.
Yeah.
Because there is, obviously if it is BYO, they're very personal things that people do on their phones. They have a lot of very personal information, whether that's, for financials or healthcare or whatever it may be. So I'm curious, does the privacy conversation come up for you
Yes.
very frequently? And what's sort of what's the healthy balance that you see there?
Great question. Especially because of the use of mobile devices, but even in general because of BYO.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been a balance between personal information and providing security. But what's good about what's happening in our industry, there's two responses from the industry, if you like. One is many devices these days will support both a work and a personal profile, and we are able to provide security across both of those profiles, but not gather personal information, say, for example, from the personal profile. And
Right.
there are a lot of security tools that do that type of thing today. And having that segregation helps protect personal information. There's also more modern operating systems and messaging platforms enable the ability for security tools to look at messages on the device in certain circumstances and never have the message leave the device, but actually make a response to them. But I think the most important thing from a privacy perspective is being able to explain to employees how security tools operate and where they're how they're being used, and that's something that our industry unfortunately hasn't done particularly well, but I think is starting to improve on through requirements around legislation like GDPR and so on. Although of course everyone's sick of clicking accept all cookies and those types of not everything has been done well, but there is a good move towards balancing that privacy and security seesaw.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a good point there, which is that the education part of it's really important.
Yeah.
Helping people understand that this is a necessity, right? It's not just something we're we as the security team are doing because we feel like we should. It's something that is required now. And that whole education conversation within security could go, we could have probably a full hour conversation on that. But it is important to help people understand, and also that a lot of times, those, okay, so you have a security app solution, whatever, on your mobile device. It can actually help protect your personal life too, right? I mean, if a phishing attack or a malicious app comes in, it's not necessarily discriminating as to whether you're currently during work hours or currently during personal hours. So there is sort of that added bonus that people can use to help them understand to help employees understand the value of what this is. Now, one thing that's always good to look at is maybe some recent news around this, right? What's the context under which this is happening? And I think that everyone can agree that there has been a lot in the news recently about a number of attacks. We don't have to go into specific ones that that have started with someone getting phished or whatever it may be, something happening on the mobile device, whether that's smishing, SMS phishing, or vishing, voice phishing. I think people are now even saying quishing, which is QR phishing. It makes it sound fun, but there's one in particular that I thought was really interesting, where it really exemplified how how phishing is becoming part of this kind of greater attack chain. Basically there was one where the attacker was able to basically, I think the term was create MFA fatigue, where they were able to trigger the MFA notification over and over and over again on an employee's device, and then I think they either called them or texted them pretending to be IT and said, hey, if you want these notifications to go away, just accept the authentication, just accept it, whatever. And so the person was like, okay, fine, this is annoying. My phone's buzzing every 30 seconds. So they tapped it. And then it was obviously the bad guy pretending to be IT, and he was able to get in. So that's sort of an example, I think, an interesting one about how these tactics are always evolving, and how the attackers honestly are pretty smart, and they're always finding ways to sort of bypass those more traditional solutions and approaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure
Yeah,
that
go
the
ahead. Yeah.
audience understand you still should use MFA.
Right. Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally. Yes. Still very necessary. Yes. Yeah, but it is always interesting to see how the tactics are evolving. So yes, very important. Please still use MFA, please. So Aaron, as we're kind of coming up on the last few minutes here, I'm sure people would love to hear, what's kind of one key piece of advice, one takeaway you would give to someone about phishing right now.
I think so. We get a lot of there's a lot of education, fortunately, around this. I think the most important one, from my perspective, is verification of messages. So many people, and this happens in our personal life and our work life these days. I mentioned business email compromise. That's typically takes the form of trying to get someone to send funds to a different account, that type of thing. But it's all a case of social engineering. The bad actor attempting to impersonate someone and then get you to do something that you wouldn't normally do. So from my perspective, the most important thing is trying to verify the message before you take action. So whether that's, if you want to contact the company that is reaching out to you, hopefully you've got a personal relationship with the company that's reaching out to you, and you can just call them directly and say, hey, Bob, did you ask me to change these, account details? And because Bob will say no, and then that gets cleared up. If it's a larger company that's somewhat faceless because you don't have contact details, at least go to their website and verify how to contact them, then log into your account and see if this is an issue. But ultimately try and verify what the message that's being sent to you without using any of the information that's being sent to you in the individual message. I think that's really critical. The other one that I would highlight, and I know you said one, Hank, but I'm going to use a little bit more time. I mentioned this. Bad actors are increasingly attempting to attack corporations through the personal personal accounts, but also personal relationships. So be aware that bad actors can be attacking, for example, your spouse or even arguably your children to gain access to a personal email account or a personal social media account that would allow them to send messages, say, within your family or within your friends group, that can result in that same sort of access to corporate details that you need to defend against. So, within your family and within your friends, try and share this type of information and verify when you get these strange types of requests.
Yeah, both really, really important things to think about. So Aaron, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure. And for everyone watching, thanks for tuning in. You can click the link in this post to learn more, and we look forward to seeing you again in a few weeks for another episode of Talk Data to Me. Have a good one.
Cheers.